So today we're talking about the final form that we're going to be talking about putting the linear equation in. We already have talked about standard form. We know what that looks like. We know what, if it's supposed to be put in slope-intercept form, we know what that looks like. And now today we're going to talk about point-slope form. Point-slope form, kind of a funny looking one, goes y subtract y sub 1 equals m times x minus x sub 1. And the reason that the 1x and the 1y do not have a subcategory, it's kind of like saying, you know what, we're going to have x and y be representing any ordered pair in the equation. You know how when we have the equation of the line, we always have an x and a y in it, typically, and then we know that whatever ordered pair we want to substitute into it can be put in for that x and y. So the y sub 1 and the x sub 1 in this are actually a point that we are given. We're going to take the x value and the y value from that point, and we're going to put them in those locations. And then the other thing we can do is when an equation is written in this form, we can pull out an ordered pair. We can pick out a point from it. So x sub 1 and y sub 1 come from a point on the line. So if we're given a point, we can put it in. If we're given the equation, we can pull it out, basically. And what is m again? Slope of the line. Looking at, I have written over on the whiteboard here our slope formula. Just looking at that slope formula, do you think there's any relationship between that slope formula and our point slope form? Do some things look alike? Yeah. What do you think we could do? Where do you think, in other words, where do you think point slope form came from? How did they derive that particular form? Where did that equation come from? Let's make another one up. What do you think, Abby?
It's kind of like a proportion. Like how we put like a 1 under m, then we have like multiply across.
Oh, so if we put a 1 under our m here, we could do the cross multiplying. And if we cross multiply, we would say, okay, I got 1 times y sub 2 minus y sub 1. That's one cross product. And then the other cross product would be m times x sub 2 minus x sub 1. And remember, when there's more than one term in a numerator or denominator, we have to put that numerator or denominator in parentheses. So that's what's going on here. Well, instead of distributing this m over here, they just left it like it is. And what happened over here? They did distribute the 1, or in other words, multiplying by 1 is, does it change the value? No. So then we can just erase those parentheses and that multiplying by 1, and now it's getting even closer to looking like point slope form. What's the other thing that they've taken out of it? Just that sub 2, yeah. The sub 2 in the y and the sub 2 on the x, because in other words, they're saying you're not going to be given 2 points, you're going to be given 1 point, or you're going to want to just pull out 1 point from this. And so there's our point slope form, which actually just came from taking the slope formula and rearranging it. Really just taking that and, like Abby said, you can make it into proportion, do your cross products, and we have that equation rearranged so it looks like our new form called point slope form. So what we're going to do is first thing we're going to do is we're going to be given an equation in point slope form. We're going to pull information out of it to help us graph the equation. So we have the equation y minus 1 equals 2 times, in parentheses, x minus 3. Now notice, in point slope form, there's subtraction on both sides, isn't there? There's subtraction between the y's and there's subtraction between the x's. Does this look like point slope form? Y minus 1 and then equals 2 times x minus 3. Well, let's do this. Let's put that point slope form up above it. Y minus y sub 1 equals m times x sub minus x sub 1. Are you sure it doesn't look like point slope form? Or in other words, what's our y sub 1? It's negative. Is it negative 1 or positive 1? Yeah, our y sub 1 is actually 1. And our x sub 1 is actually what? 3. So we really have here ordered pair, not 1, 3. 3, 1. You got to be careful. We actually have ordered pair 3, 1. We have a point that's on that line right there. So that would be our starting point for graphing it. What's the slope of this line? 2. Our slope is actually 2. M equals 2. Well, let's make that into rise over run. What can we make? 2. 2 over 1. Or what's another? Negative 2 over negative 1. Okay, we are ready to graph. We have our ordered pair that we're going to start with. Ordered pair 3, 1. And we have, should probably change colors here so it shows up a little bit better for you. And we have our rise over run. So there's our starting point. From there we're going to go up 2 over 1. Or we can go down 2 and over 1. And we have our minimum of 3 points. Draw your line. You have graphed the equation for y minus 1 equals 2 times x minus 3. Okay, any questions? Okay, I want you to try identifying what we just did in number 1. Don't graph it yet. All I want you to do is identify the parts. Can you find the point that we need to start with? And then what can we use as a slope to help us graph other points? So in number 2, I want you to decide, okay? Maybe I should go back to having a pen. Okay, what's our y sub 1 in this one? 4. Positive 4. Because remember, there's subtraction in our point slope form. What's our x sub 1? Negative 2. Or in other words, just like we can change subtraction to add the opposite, we can change addition to subtract the opposite. So we can rename this part right here as x minus the opposite of 2, which is negative 2. So we really have, see, it was cleaned up, wasn't it? So we really have a negative 2 for our x sub 1. So what's our ordered pair? Negative 2, 4. And it will be really easy to interchange these two and put them in their wrong location. Because the y comes first in point slope form, and the x comes second, and you'll just drop down into an ordered pair and call it good. What's the slope? Negative 3/4. Okay. How many ways, what are the 2 ways, I mean, that we can do that negative 3/4? What's one way?
3 over negative 4.
3 over negative 4. Or negative 3 over positive 4. Either the rise or the run is negative, but they can't both be negative at the same time. So we start with our ordered pair, negative 2, 4. From there, we can go up 3 and 4 to the left. Negative 4 means go left for the run. Or we can go down 3 and 4 to the right. And we have our 3 points for our line. With arrows at both ends, I'm just not going to take time to stop and put the arrows on. were you successful identifying those parts on your own? Any questions? Here we get one more that we're going to practice here. Okay, so we have y plus 3 equals 0 times x minus 4. So again, first thing we're going to do is we're going to identify what's our point. What's our y sub 1? What's our x sub 1? And then what's that mean for an ordered pair? And then we'll identify our slope. So what's our y sub 1 in this one? Negative 3, yeah. So it's negative 3 because this can be rewritten as y minus a negative 3. What's our x sub 1? Positive 4. That one is already subtraction. We don't need to change it. So 4 is what's being subtracted. So what's our ordered pair?
4 negative 3.
4 negative 3. What's the slope of this line? 0. Okay, right there we stop and say, you know what? If slope is 0, what kind of line do we have? We have a horizontal line. So let's just write that. We have a horizontal line. A 0 slope means there is a 0 upstairs. That means there's no rise. It's just running. If it's running, it can only go back and forth, left and right, so it's a horizontal line. So we're going to put our point on our graph at 4, negative 3. Our starting point here, and we'll take our ruler and draw a horizontal line. We don't need any more points. You know it's going to be a horizontal line, so through that point, draw yourself a horizontal line. And let's put some arrows, make sure we put arrows at the end of it, and make sure you extend it through the graph, and make sure it's clear, because you know what happens when you have two horizontal lines on the graph? You lose track of which one is the x-axis and which one is your line. So make sure you can see it on there. And that's why it's also a really good idea to always label your x and y axis so you know which lines on there are the axes. Okay, anybody got questions about any of these three? Being able to take an equation already given to you in point slope form, pulling out a point from it, pulling out the slope from it, and being able to graph the line. Okay, then let's go to the back side and see what we're going to practice back there. Okay, so we have our next thing that we're going to practice here is write the equation of the line in point slope form. So in other words, now they're giving us the stuff we just pulled out, and we're going to do the reverse. We're going to write the equation. So again, remember our point slope form, let's write it up here. Y minus y sub 1 equals m times x minus x sub 1. We'll just substitute into that. So, oh, I already have it right here, sorry. I guess we didn't really need to write it again, it's right there. Okay, so what's that slope equals 1/5 telling us? What's that going to replace in the equation? The m. So put an m there. That's your m value. What's the negative 2 going to replace? The x sub 1. What's the 6 going to replace? The y sub 1. It should be pretty easy. We just have to substitute into our form and clean it up. So we have y minus, it's always going to start like that, y minus. And then we will subtract our y sub 1 value, which is 6. We will put our slope in for m. You'll always have this x in there. Subtract your x sub 1, which is negative 2. So substitute into the appropriate places, and can that be cleaned up? And I don't mean by doing distributive property. I mean, can that be cleaned up, getting rid of extra signage that we don't need?
X plus 2.
So we can change the end of it to x plus 2. And that's how we would see the answer in an answer bank. Okay, you try the next one on your own. Do you agree with me so far? Here's one that we really would not clean it up, because then we would kind of like be losing the point slope form. Okay, so even though subtracting 0 from x does not alter the value of the equation, we could just make it x. We would leave it like this to show the actual x value of the ordered pair that we would get. So this one we would not clean up. Okay, so any questions about being able to do that? We'll do one more here. What if they give you 2 ordered pairs? Okay, listen up, my shortcutters. There's 2 things we're going to do here. What does it say? We need slope first. Then you give us that. And then, after we have the slope, we have 2 points. Which one are we going to use? Guess what? It doesn't matter. Tomorrow, when you have problems like this, you may have one of the choice ends of the answers, and then your table partner might have the other one because they used the other point. So in other words, if we know 2 points, we can write 2 different equations in point slope form for this same line. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to find that slope. And I want you shortcutters to quit shortcutting. You have to substitute into the slope formula. So I'm going to make this my x sub 2, y sub 2, 1, and I'm going to make this my x sub 1, y sub 1, 1. Just for now, just for the slope purposes. So I'm going to have 3 take away negative 3, and 9 take away 10. We should all get the same answer, even if you let the first point be your x sub 1, y sub 1, and your second point be your x sub 2, y sub 2. We should all get the same slope. What's 3 take away negative 3?
0.
6.
Change it to add the opposite, and it is 6, isn't it? And 9 take away 10? Negative 1. And that simplifies to negative 6. So we just found our slope, didn't we? We can now say that m equals negative 6. Okay? Now, let's in our notes, let's practice writing both of them. In other words, showing that there are really 2 point slope form names we can give this equation. We can work with when m is negative 6, and we can use ordered pair 9, 3 to write an equation in point slope form. So we would say, okay, well then it's going to be y take away what? 3 equals
6 parentheses.
negative 6 times
X minus 9.
x minus 9. There's one of our point slope form names for this equation. Doesn't even need any cleaning up, does it? It's good to go. Or we have the option of m equals negative 6, and the other ordered pair, which is what?
10 negative 3.
10 negative 3.
Y minus negative 3.
So y minus a negative 3 equals,
Negative 6 times x minus 10.
yeah. Should we clean that one up? What should we clean it up to?
Y plus 3.
Y plus 3. Do we need to clean up anything on the other side?
No.
No, so we'll just leave it as negative 6 times x minus 10. So there's another name. Same equation, but just another point slope form name. How many point slope form names do you think an equation has? Cajillions. Why? Because you said so. There's a new law that says in math, if Devin says so, it holds true. Because there's infinite points on the line. That would be why we come up with that bajillion.